Hello, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining me on the She Leads Me podcast. We were just joking before we hit record. Like, this has been a long time coming. We've had so many things like come up, tech things, issues, whatever. It's finally here. We've made it.
It's wonderful to be here too, finally.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And she was just sharing with me for our listeners that they're going back on lockdown right now. So we just were kind of chatting about that a little bit, which is a little bit crazy. What's your household like? Does that impact a lot of people? Is it kind of the end of the world, or is it welcomed?
Well, the way I see it, I have two young boys, one's 10 and one's 12. And so that means homeschooling for them, but they just sort of walk around with their laptops everywhere. Sometimes I find them in my bed. Sometimes I find them, outside, really just as long as they're getting their work done.
Yeah.
My husband thankfully works in he has a business that is considered an essential business. So he gets to go to work, which is really good because I say to him, you are my tipping point. If you are at home asking me what's for lunch, then I'm going to actually lose my mind.
Right. Yes. Oh my gosh. So, and what we didn't mention thus far also for people that are listening, maybe starting to panic because they're in another country and are like, wait, we're shutting down again. Tell everybody where you're located.
In Melbourne, Australia. So
fabulous. I love Australia. Did I tell you before Sarah was so graciously came as part of our membership community and taught us all about some really great ins and outs on LinkedIn. I don't know if I mentioned to you or not that I've spent some time in Australia and fell in love with where I was staying. I was in a homestay. It was when I was a little bit younger, but it was definitely on my list of places to go back to as soon as possible. And then fast forward, 20 years, but as soon as I can.
Yeah, it is really good. And look, we're pretty lucky because we're an island in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's been pretty, when I say we're locking down, I mean, we've literally got 20 cases, but they're just trying to shut us down and get us back on track as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So you'll be able to come, I'm sure.
I'm looking forward to it. So let's share with the audience a bit about what it is that you do and how you support people in their careers and their leadership journeys. Kind of share with us a little bit about what is your profession? What do you get to do every day? Mm-hmm.
So I am an executive coach and I help senior executives create a personal brand for themselves so that they can ensure that they're not overlooked and that they can fast track their career. Because really these days it's all about visibility and attention. And if you're not creating a buzz around yourself or, creating some attention and making sure people know what you do, then it's very hard for people to, relate to you or even help you if they don't know what. So that's what I do, and really encourage them to step out and be the best they can be.
Love that. And you were in corporate yourself, right? Which is where you really realized the need for this. Tell us a little bit about your history prior to starting your own business and kind of what led you here.
Yeah, sure. So I worked for large corporates in Australia, and my role was to run their corporate affairs space for a particular business division or whatever part of the corporation I needed to. And I looked at investor relations, government relations, crisis management, so media, a lot of media, and the internal communications, which was really around how do you get your staff engaged in where you're going. So those were my areas. But what I found really interesting was that the company once you're at a certain level, like a CEO or a managing director, you are given a resource like me. So the company pays for me to support this person in building their brand and to make sure that their reputation is managed and that they're, leading their teams in the best way and that they've got all that support. But the next rung down doesn't get any support. So that's sort of where I suppose I realised that there was an opportunity for me to help those people get to that next level, because a lot of people don't know what it is that next level needs. So I did that for a long time. So I did the corporate comms space for 15, 20 years. And then I had babies, 2 babies. And then I had, then I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I can't go back to corporate, too much travel, too crazy really for me. And I had to make a family decision, as we often do as females. And So I did a few things ticked off my bucket list. I wanted to be a fashion designer, so I went and did fashion design. I did, did a bit of consulting. I started a fashion blog with my girlfriend, and that was awesome. And then I thought, okay, now it's time to work out what I really wanted to do. And I realized that what I loved was what I was doing, which was the corporate comms space. But I wanted to do it for people who, for the next level down, who were feeling like they were overlooked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, that sort of, senior executives who have big goals, really. But I also help entrepreneurs as well who are leaving corporate and starting their own business. So
because that's a whole other set of things where, like, totally, as you're stepping into the business, your own business, building your team, there's only so much that you can have your hands in, right? As a business owner, with whether you're providing services to your people, like, it can't be, you have to get help some places because you can't be all things to all people all the time. You have to really leverage other people like yourself to help step in on some of those places. And I'm sure that employees everywhere love when they see you walk through the doors because they're like, yes, my person is here.
And I think the other thing is, it's even if you're out, whether you're in a corporate, and this has changed in the last few years, but whether you're in a corporate, whether you have your own business, whether you're, whatever you're doing, you have to be curating and developing your personal brand. Like, it's so critical. And for a long time, working in a corporate, you didn't really need to, or the view was that you didn't need to unless you were the CEO. And even people who have, say, like a product business, they didn't really think that. My sister has a fashion brand in Australia. And I'm always saying to her, you have to build your personal brand because people want to connect with you, not just your product. So, it's easy as a product person to sort of say, oh, I don't need to build my brand because I've got this product. But the reality is people buy people, they want to connect with people. So
do you find that bigger corporations have a problem with that, with people? I've noticed, I'll just speak from my experience. I've noticed that sometimes there are people that are worried about people developing their personal brand as overshadowing the company on some level, which I know is very limited thinking. But is that what you find as well?
So I find that it's often a question that comes up in different ways. So some might say to me, look, I'm nervous about building my brand because I have got confidential things that I work on, like if they're a lawyer or, and so I often, or my company won't let me speak at events. And so these are the sorts of things that kind of come up about that. And so I sort of, I have two messages, I suppose. One is that you have to think of yourself as a business. That just because you were employed for these people today doesn't mean they could leave. They could literally kick you out the door tomorrow. You can be made redundant. So there's no, you really do have to be thinking about yourself and your career. And number two, I would say, is there's a way to position it. When you go out and talk about your company, you really shouldn't be talking about your company. You should be talking about what you offer and the value you bring. So say you're a marketer and you work for this company. Yes, you can use them as an example, but you shouldn't be focusing your whole brand on that company. You need to establish your brand away from that company. And the way you do that is by demonstrating your expertise online and sharing value. And, you can reference what you can of an example maybe that your company's done, but you might equally reference other companies of what they've done. I always say lead with your own brand.
Yeah. And when you are talking about in this space, you would say that is like people establishing their brand on social media, where are people establishing their brand?
Yeah, so that's LinkedIn, obviously really good space for corporates, but also huge and growing. I mean, it's, at the moment you don't have to pay to play, so there's massive opportunities to establish your brand there. But it can equally be your own website. It could be on industry sites. It could be Instagram, wherever your target audience or your stakeholders are spending their time. It could be forums. It could be events. It could be, there's so many different sort of avenues. That's where you want to be, establishing that brand. Yeah.
And so when you work with these people, you're coming in, you're helping them establish a brand, really finding their voice and telling them that's okay to step into this place. It is their voice to be had, their voice to be heard, and people buy from people, all of that. And then I would think that there's probably some bigger topics that you tap into as far as maybe even talking about some of the core important things like potentially like networking, right? And how we connect with other people. Would you share with us a little bit about, and I know that these kind of also tie into, I believe your program that you have coming up, right? Some of these things. So yeah, share with us a bit about that too. And let's dive into all the layers.
Okay. So, yes, I have got a group program. We're opening the doors until June, but we've got a wait list on the website at the moment. And so I do a lot of one-on-one private coaching, but I have recently started group programs and they're fantastic. We're getting great momentum, some great results of people getting, attracting that dream role that they've been wanting for a long time. So that is incredibly exciting. But also that byproduct of that is this confidence that comes. And I think that's the most exciting thing, to see people grow in confidence. So first of all, we really kick off with, what is your goal? Where do you want to go? And getting really clear on that. It's amazing how many people aren't clear on exactly what they want. And I always suggest get that top 10 list of companies you want to work for, or top 10 clients that you want. And then get it. I like them to do some character assessments. I like to get a feel from, I like them to go out to their audience and sort of say, how do you experience me? And get a really kind of good feel. Like it's a really great exercise for your listeners.
Oh, yeah,
like,
vulnerable. Woo.
Yeah. and I always say just get them to say 3 words. But I had a client once. He was determined to push the boundaries, and he went out to someone who he knew didn't like him. So I don't recommend that. Because that could really torment you for months, right? You know how we always concentrate on the one negative thing. So go out to people that you think will give you good feedback, not just good, but constructive. So 3 words to describe me. And so we get that. We sort of work through. So that's really about establishing how you're perceived and getting clear on your goal. And then we look at things such as your value proposition. And what is it that makes you stand out next to the person who does exactly what you do, but how do you communicate the value you bring? So having a really clear pitch statement or brand statement. And we look at things such as your professional story. So, and this is a really one of the most overlooked areas, but how do you explain where you've come from and where you're going really succinctly, without people losing interest, but that it makes it obvious that everything has a reason for why you're where you are and where you're going. So it really needs to position you, and it needs to explain why you are on the track you're at, and it needs to show the thread through that.
You help people land the plane, in other words.
That's right.
You say around here. Bring in the story. Come on, let's land the plane.
That's great. That's great. I'm going to use that one.
Yes, please.
Then we look at things such as, what do you want to be known for? That's another really important part. I work with my clients on truly becoming that expert. So what does it take to be an expert in your field and an expert in the areas you want to be known for? So we spend quite a bit of time on that. And then we look at how do you show up? So where are all the places we need to get you? And I don't believe in sort of going everywhere. Really targeted. Make sure that the effort you're putting in gives you the best return. And how do you frame what you want to be known for? Because so one of the things that I see people do is they don't have a strategy for how they want to get to where they want to get to. So whether that's growing their client list or getting that executive role, they don't have a strategy. So, and we all know that if you don't have a strategy, you're just unlikely to land your plane.
Right. You're going to fly in circles, not know where you're landing, where it's safe to land. Do you think that some of these conversations, or like maybe the approaches and the strategies, or even just the importance of it, have you noticed a difference in a pre-COVID world versus now in kind of this different time? Is it more important than before? Are the strategies different? Have you noticed any difference there?
Yeah, I would say it's more important than ever, first of all, for 2 reasons. One is there's so much upheaval. So if you're an executive, for example, in a role, or say you're working for a company, it's really important to be thinking about what does that look like having multiple income streams, or potentially looking towards what that might look like, because you could be, your client or your employer may get rid of you tomorrow. So how that brand needs to be able to position you for your next role. And it needs to be able to make sure that it's like brand equity. And it's the same with your business. You've got to be, you know how you're always thinking like, okay, when's my next, I've got to be marketing myself for my next client. And that's part of the same process. You've got to build that brand so people know who you are and what you offer. And I would say it's even more important now because everybody's online. The whole world is online in terms of that and looking for that digital connection rather than, you don't have that opportunity to bump into them at the water cooler or, those informal things. And I don't know about you, but I've had so many less coffee meetings. It's much more about catching up on Zoom. And so if you're not online and, creating your brand and making sure people know the value you bring, then you're really missing out on opportunities to connect with people, but also, grow.
Yeah. Yeah. So in a time now where, there's still uncertainty about is the world reopening parts of it, like we're starting to reopen, you're shutting down for a week. So when we talk about networking and, we're looking at broadening our network probably and making it more expansive if we're looking for opportunities, whether it's internally at our company or just for the good of our career or the good of our business.
Yeah.
How are you helping people find good connections online? I feel like now more than ever, like it was already hard for me anyways in person to find like the right type of communities and things. And so much so that I had to create kind of my own networking group because it just, what was available to me wasn't around. And now we have to go do it the layer of like being online or how do people do that successfully right now?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question because I think it's also about, that fit. Like, do you connect with people? Like, is that the right connection? I had a coffee meeting. Wow. The first in ages. And I was talking to this great lady and then she invited me to a networking dinner and then I ended up meeting a whole group of other people. It was very small and intimate, which I really loved.
Yeah.
So that was sort of like, I suppose sometimes they can just come to you because you listen to a great podcast and you meet somebody who's doing that. And so, you follow the chain. But what I always recommend with my clients is I'm a big fan of LinkedIn and I really encourage them to connect with people that are in their space or doing things that they would love to be doing. Mm-hmm. So, if you see somebody who's doing something that you think is fantastic, reach out to them and just say, look, can I just speak to you for 15 minutes? Via Zoom or, I always think that's a lot easier to get people to commit to a Zoom meeting. I'd love to hear about your journey and how you got to where you're doing and how you get to where you are. And I always recommend do not ask them for a job and make it clear that you are wanting to talk to them about what they're doing and how they got where they got to. And obviously, you don't want to be asking about things that you could easily find online. So you need to think about those questions. But that then puts you in potentially contact with someone else. So I also suggest is, having that list of 10 companies or clients that you might want to work with and asking them, do you know anyone in this space? This is where I'm looking at, exploring further. Mm-hmm. And then they can potentially introduce you to someone else.
Yeah. I love what you're saying here too about, kind of like the overarching message is like, come prepared and do the work. Like you have to be willing to put in as much input as you're wanting on the output, right? Like great connections and expanding your network intentionally doesn't just happen by accident. And you're speaking that out right now where it's like, you got to think about things that aren't going to bore those people to death, right? Because if you come with canned answers that they could find online somewhere, you have to be willing to show up in a way that gets them to then even think about like what happened with you. How do I connect you to come to this networking group and be connected to other people? So I'm so glad you mentioned that because there is an intentionality behind that.
Definitely. And the other thing just on that too is that is another reason why the story matters so much. Mm-hmm. And know what you want. If someone says to you, so where are you, what's your goals? Or, even if you don't have a really clearly set out goal, at least have something that you can say, I'm looking at this and that. And again, have a really clear story. I worked with a client once who, her story, we spent a lot of time on it because she was going to interviews or meeting people for coffee. And she said, by the time I'm sort of maybe halfway through my story, I can tell they've lost interest. And I was like,
Oh,
okay,
no.
well, that's a really good indicator. So we really knew that we had to spend a lot of time working on that. But by the end of the time we worked together, she had a great story. Clearly, you know, it was short, sharp, and yeah, so it's good.
That's awesome. And a good reminder. Yeah, like we don't want to lose our audience here.
And also
the
the other great way to do networking, I think, is masterminds and group programs. For me, I've met some of the most amazing people joining groups and further learning. So
yes. Yeah. Awesome. So share with us a little bit more about the Career Accelerator group program. So there's a waitlist available on your website, which is, how do people get to your website?
Yeah, sarahmakris.com.au.
Excellent.
You can also follow me on LinkedIn or reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I can send you, you can send me your email and I'll pop you on the wait list, and we'll be definitely be in touch. Mm-hmm. So it's a 12-week program. We do live coaching every fortnight. It's a fantastic group of, you know, people, and we work through those 6 sort of pillars or 6 modules, and we get on call and we become really what people love most about it, I think, also is you get to see that everybody struggles with different things. Mm-hmm. And so often we sit there and think, oh no, they've got it all together, you know, but the reality is we all struggle in different ways, and so we can see other people's challenges that they're going through as well. And I do the live coaching. We have a Slack channel where we, you know, interact throughout the time. We do like live video shoots. And we work through the first one, which I said before, was around your goals and your clarity and how you're perceived. We look at your audience. Who are you trying to get in front of? And what do they call the problems that you can solve? What do you want to be known for? And how do we build a plan so that you're out there and really owning who you are, and everybody knows who you are and what you're doing and what your value is, more importantly than what you're doing.
So you get the best of both worlds. You get, well, the best of all the worlds. There's more than 2 here. I think you get to connect with other people. So having that community, you get to work through the topics and the things here. And then also it sounds like you kind of walk away with something a bit more custom to you. So there is a little bit of that tailored to you as an individual aspect, which sounds really amazing.
And we do spend quite a bit of time on LinkedIn as well. So I think that's everyone loves to learn a lot more about LinkedIn. I think that's a really big one. Like you
shared so many amazing takeaways when you did your LinkedIn training with our membership community. I was just like, I had no idea there was that many things to know about LinkedIn. I really just thought that I was doomed to a life of always getting requests from people I don't know.
Yeah, most people during the group program, I must say, most people are like, wow, oh my God, I can do all that. And I can position myself so well, because that's another thing we work on is positioning, because a lot of the time people position themselves lower than what they are or what they're trying to attract. And I think that comes down to confidence sometimes, but it also, there's certain things you can do that help you to position yourself a lot more in line with where you want to go. So
fabulous.
Yeah, so it's a great, I mean, you know, a lot of my clients get promotions afterwards, or they start getting opportunities to consult, which is great if they're not working. And then other times, some of my clients have, you know, established their brand within an organisation. So say they've been given a promotion, and that you've got 90 days to prove yourself pretty much when you start in a new job. So you have to have a plan of how you're going to show up and what you're going to known for in that organization. So
absolutely. This is also so incredibly valuable for the people listening that are, you know, whether applying this directly to working for somebody else or adopting some of this within their own individual brand. I would love to kind of know how you took, your time in corporate and kind of speaking to those people that are also listening that are building their own businesses. How was the business building process for you? How long have you been doing your own business now?
So I've been in business for 3 years, and it's been great. I mean, it's. I think for me, like I had to really push myself out there myself, because you know, here I am saying, hey, you've got to build your brand, get out there. I was like, well, I have to do that too. Yes. So I know how scary it can be. And initially I found it really, scary. And what I've learned in the time is that scary is good because it means I'm growing. So I actually now actively look for those opportunities for when I can do something that scares me crazy. I don't know if I mentioned to you last time, but I did a webinar last year. I did 5 webinars, and first webinar I had 450 people sign up from around the world. Wow. And I was absolutely freaking out. Like I was like,
That's
oh my
amazing.
God, what have I done? and I did it. And then obviously the next one came, and everything just became, because I committed to 5, I couldn't like pull out. Like I was like, I have to.
Right.
And so anyway, it just got easier, and now I actually really enjoy them. So I think for me, that was a really strong message. Like, do things that feel uncomfortable, because on the other side of that is growth.
Mm-hmm.
And and I think that's sort of the strategy I've used for my business the whole way through. Like it was, first I was working off a little laptop, and then I invested in my business, and I put, more into it. And it's so rewarding to see that happen. And now, and I also feel like what I did in corporate, and what I'm sharing with people and seeing other people achieve what they want to do is the best part about it.
Yeah. Oh, that's incredible. Congratulations. It is no small feat to build a successful business, and let alone one that provides just such incredible value for people. I'm so glad that you stuck with it, and that you're sharing your message and you're helping people all around the world with the stuff that you teach. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Yes. I'd love to know a couple of maybe your top tips of advice for people that are looking to grow their business or grow their career right now. What would be maybe the things they could do right now today to go out and take some action towards that next step for them?
Yeah. So I would definitely recommend knowing what you want to be known for, and being really, really clear on that. So I think I mentioned before about my sister who has a business, and I said to her the other day, I said, what do you want to be known for? And she has a clothing business. So I said, do you want to be a fashion designer? Do you want to be known as a fashion designer, or do you want to be known as a businesswoman? And that's actually 2 quite different things. So, and I think sometimes we forget like what it is that you actually want.
Yeah.
Forget how important that is, because if she wants to be known as a fashion designer, that's a totally different message.
Right.
And a different audience, and how she shows up is different. Whereas if she wants to be known as a successful businesswoman, that's different again as well. So that's probably the best example I can give when it comes to that sort of, that's a great example. Mm-hmm. But I think that once you know what you're known for, then it's about reinforcing those messages and pushing away everything else, and really kind of honing in on those messages. So every time you show up, you talk about those things, you reinforce those things. And LinkedIn, I know I've said it before, but LinkedIn is a huge opportunity right now. And I can say that Gary Vee agrees with me.
Yes.
Like I said before, it's free to play. It's you have an opportunity to connect with people and who are in the things that you are doing, and especially if you're looking for a role. Mm-hmm. And LinkedIn is definitely powerful, and having a really clear bio and story, like what we were talking about. And being consistent and visible. Yeah. Make sure people you're showing up.
Being consistent and visible. That's amazing. Yeah. Touching on LinkedIn for a minute, since there is a paid version of LinkedIn, do you recommend that people, is there a great benefit to doing the paid version, or is there just as much opportunity with the free?
So it's a really good question. I think that, so if you're an executive, and you're in a business, you're in the executive, I would get the premium version. And that is because it's, you can see, one of the things I love about the premium version is that you can literally see what skills you're missing in a search for a role. So say you want to be a CEO, you look at that role and that will tell you how many skills you're missing from that. So you can update your profile to make sure that you're in line with that positioning.
Interesting.
Sales Navigator is great if you're in a business. And I would definitely recommend it if you have your own business, because Sales Navigator lets you target your audience much more clearly. So, for example, for me, I would be targeting senior executives who've been in who've been in a role for more than, say, 2 years, or, those are the people that I might want to talk to. Whereas, if you're looking for a role in HR, and then you might be targeting people who are, or you're a coach and you want to be looking for people who are growing their own business. And you would put in, CEOs who are founders, business of under 3 years, so there's different ways to target. So Sales Navigator, if you've got a business, definitely worth it, and it lets you message people you don't know. And the other thing that's great is if you're an executive, definitely go with the premium version of LinkedIn.
Yeah. Fabulous. That's so great. I've never known what the difference is between the two. So thank you. That was so helpful.
A lot of people ask, don't know the difference.
Yeah.
Premium and things.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. Before I let you go, I have to ask you a question. How did it go for that guy that asked somebody that didn't like him how they felt about him? How'd that go?
Well, as you can imagine, it wasn't the best feedback. And it wasn't, I wouldn't recommend it, basically. I wouldn't recommend it. But this client of mine, he's got tough skin, and he was willing to take it. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend it for everyone. Definitely not. Yeah, no. In fact, I think it's much better to give you constructive.
I had to know. I was like, man, that's intense. All right. Hopefully it worked out for him. Sarah, thank you so much for your time. Yeah. Let's share with people, you have your own podcast. Is that correct? You have your own podcast?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Watch this. Yes.
Okay.
Watch this.
Ooh, so it's coming in the future for Sarah. But people can connect with you on LinkedIn, on your website that we just mentioned. They can check out your Career Accelerator group program and follow along on Instagram. Excellent.
Sarah Makris Australia. Yes. Yeah. Perfect. And my group program is launching soon. So I'd love to,
Yeah. So join the wait. Perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time today. It was such a pleasure to have you.
Lovely chatting to you as always. Thank you.